It's your boy Jeffy here in San Francisco, California. Like, subscribe, yada, 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 you know the drill. But today I got a question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where you were talking with somebody and maybe you took something that they said the wrong way? In other words, you perhaps misinterpreted their meaning and you became upset only to find out later that the entire scenario was all made up in your head. So, for example, let's say you got two friends that are hanging out. And one's tall, one's shorter. And maybe the short one is telling the tall one some story about how he got screwed over at work. And the taller guy says, "Damn, bro, sounds like you got the short end of the stick." Now, the shorter friend, this person has some insecurity, okay? They have some issues about their height, and so they respond. They kind of fire back. What do you mean the short end of the stick? You know what? Screw it. I'm done with this. Frig off. Frig off, Leahy, and he storms off in a huff. And the other guy's just sitting there like, what just happened? Now, that's just the first example off the top of my head, but I think that pretty much everybody has had one of these experiences at one time or another. You know, I know personally I have, and looking back, these episodes have comprised some of the most cringe experiences of my life. Like literally the memory of it might like pop up later while you're in the shower or something, and you're just like, ugh, like yikes, that was bad. So why is this so embarrassing? Well, think about it. When you misunderstand what somebody says as a personal attack, all it does is it serves to highlight, boldface, underline, and italicize your insecurities for everyone around, right? If you hadn't said anything, nobody would have thought twice, but because you brought it up, now it's all they're thinking about. Now, when something like this happens, it's the result of something that we call filters of insecurity. And everyone has these to one degree or another. They're basically like, think of it like a Photoshop filter over reality. They're kind of like tinted glasses inside our heads that color everything that we perceive. So let me give you another example. Let's say that you have a person of high self-esteem and a person of low self-esteem. And these people are given the same compliment, right? The compliment, nice jacket, that's cool. Like they got a new jacket, they're out sporting it, and someone's like, hey, I like the jacket, that's cool. Now, the person with high self-esteem is likely to graciously accept the compliment and then just move on. Oh yeah, thanks man, I got it, you know, here, XYZ, cool. So anyway, but the person with low self-esteem might interpret that remark as possibly sarcastic or condescending, right? Their internal filters of insecurity about their appearance actually change the way that they hear things and transform this innocent compliment into a snarky dig about their lame-ass jacket. So do you see the difference here? Now, let's imagine that these same two people are on the receiving end of an actual insult, right? Like they got the new jacket, it's like some leather motorcycle jacket, they think it's really cool, they wear it out, and somebody's like, you know, hey, sick jacket, Fonzie, real cool. Now the person with low self-esteem will probably be crushed. Their state is broken, maybe they don't even know what Fonzie is, but they know it's bad. You know, they might fire back with an insult of their own, some kind of expletive, they storm out of the venue, their night's done. You know, hell, they might even go home and throw the jacket away, like or just never wear it again. It's, you know, it's relegated to the closet. Now, the person with high self-esteem might interpret that same insult as a joke, like, hey, nice jacket, Fonzie, and he's like, hey, yeah, I'm actually gonna jump over a shark later, it's gonna be awesome. So anyway, like I was saying, blah, 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 blah. See, not only are they free from these filters of insecurity, but they've got filters of confidence that proactively defend against attacks like that. So the point's this, because the high self-esteem person interpreted the insult as a joke, it becomes a joke. Not only to them, but to everyone around them. And it's the same with the low self-esteem person's reaction to the compliment. The interpretation becomes the meaning for all intents and purposes. Perception is reality. And this is related to a concept that I've talked about many, many times before in these videos, the concept of frame control. So what's your frame? Your frame is basically the way that you perceive things to be in any given situation. And in any social interaction, the strongest frame wins, so to speak, becomes the consensus reality, if you will, and the others are sucked into it. You know, think of how you might behave if a police officer came up to you with their hand on their gun and started asking you pointed questions, right? You would most likely choose your words pretty carefully. You might adjust your posture to kind of be non-threatening, hands out of the pockets, and you might refer to them as sir or officer. You might not want to make, as much eye contact with them as you might with a random person. Now, imagine if a 10-year-old child came up and started asking you the same questions. It's unlikely that you would even give much thought to how you responded. If you even responded to them at all, you might just ignore them. It's even less likely that you'd have difficulty controlling your inner state around them. So for a person of high status, they view the entire world the same way that you might think of the kid. You see, tolerance to social pressure is a conveyor of status. And demonstrating status, demonstrating value, that's actually one of the most crucial aspects of so-called charismatic communication. The inner self-talk that's generated by your intellectual mode affects your ability to withstand social pressure. And whether you like it or not, that inner self-talk is going to manifest itself externally through your body language, through your vocal tonality, through your eye contact, and many, many other minute cues. And this is why it's very important to pinpoint those filters of insecurity. And then furthermore, do whatever is necessary to eradicate them, to release them, to replace their manifestations in your life. So with that in mind, I'm going to list some of the most common filters of insecurity here, and just so you can get an idea of the ones that might be affecting you. All right, so let's go. So first off, number one is being stuck in your head. And this is one that I see a lot in my capacity as a coach, right? Have you ever been talking to somebody and they kind of seem like they're not really listening to you, but they're somewhere else? They're probably doing this. It's basically not paying attention to other people because you're focused on perhaps your next move, or you're thinking about, the logistics of the situation, or something that you just did that was embarrassing, or who knows what. You're not here. So when you do this, you're not living in the moment, and it can actually end up hurting you in terms of your interactions. So understand, the intellect, it's always relating to either the dead past or the imagined future. If you're totally present, the intellect is transcended. And presence is, of course, the foundation of all charismatic social interactions. Because a social interaction, it's a living thing, it's a dynamic thing. And if you want to avoid screwing up, you've got to pay attention to the people that you're interacting with. So get out of your own head. Now, the next one is nervousness. And with this one, essentially what's happening is your fear of failure is coloring everything around you. So think about how this sabotages your interactions. A person of true high status wouldn't view social interaction as something having potentially negative consequences. If you're portraying yourself as somebody of high status, but underneath you're actually nervous, it is going to show, right? Through those same mechanisms that we discussed a moment ago. And that facade is going to fall away, and the true insecure person will be revealed. So you got to shake that nervousness. Learn to drop the self-judgment. Even if you're actively trying to improve your social skills, and you're not there yet, you still got to come at it with an attitude of play, right? Our work is our play is our work, and so on. Okay, so the next one is paranoia, and this is another big one. This is what was going on in the example earlier with the short friend, and this one's particularly insidious. You're talking to someone perhaps in the club, and you hear laughter behind you, like a group of people starts laughing at a table. You instantly assume they're laughing at you, like, look at this fucking guy. So your state falls, right? Turns out they're just laughing at a joke that their friend told, but that's irrelevant. The damage is done, and so are you. But remember, just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean they're not out to get you. But behave as though it does anyway, right? Okay, so the next one is going to be self-monitoring. And this is somewhat related to being in your head, but it's actually kind of worse in a certain sense, because it's actually like being in your head and nervousness combined. So what's happening here is you're constantly analyzing the reaction to everything you say, to make sure that it's well received. You're walking a tightrope, you're walking on eggshells, carefully selecting the words that come out of your mouth, in the hopes that it will impress the people you're interacting with. Basically, you're being what we call outcome dependent, and that reeks of neediness, which is perhaps the most unattractive characteristic of all. So live in the moment and let go of any concerns you have about the outcome. Do right action and take the action for the joy of taking the action. All right? So the next one is undeservedness. And I used to be massively guilty of this one. I would approach somebody that I found highly attractive, and then I'd inexplicably screw it up. And I couldn't understand this one for a long time because, when I'd go up to regular people, I'd have no problem, just getting there, spitting that smooth flow, being super on the ball, super charming. But here, I knew exactly what to do in terms of like technique, but for some reason, when I hit up that person that I found particularly desirable, I just forget everything I learned and just act like an idiot, like some noob, right? And I realized that this was related to filters of insecurity. I felt I didn't deserve to be with those people because maybe I wasn't good looking enough, maybe I wasn't accomplished enough, et cetera, whatever. But it wasn't until I understood this dynamic and rejected the idea that I started having successful interactions with people on that level, so to speak. So you should do the same. And this involves clearly understanding the value that you're bringing to the table. In other words, why would it be a good idea for those so-called high status people to be with you? If you don't have an answer for that, you got to make an answer, okay? The next one's going to be fear of expression. Now, have you ever had stage fright? Like you had to get up on stage at the karaoke bar, you're next, or give a public, give a speech. That's what this is, okay? Make no mistake, when you're approaching someone you don't know, it's not much different than getting up on stage and singing in front of a crowd. It's an expression. All charisma is the expression of your inner state, conveyed by the rhythms you use to direct the energy of the interaction. If you want to be charismatic, if you want to attract people to your side, you've got to be unafraid to get up there and shine, right? That's what charisma is all about. It's like putting your personality on the chopping block and let the chips fall where they may. And people are really drawn to that like a magnet. Now, the next filter of insecurity is having and holding arrogant beliefs. Somebody with arrogant beliefs, basically they refuse to acknowledge that they could learn anything from someone else. And this can hinder your development as a charismatic communicator because oftentimes the biggest revelations can come from unlikely sources. For example, believe it or not, every single time I do a live program, I end up learning something from the student that I'll end up incorporating into my repertoire, so to speak, or at the bare minimum, I'll use it to reinforce past learnings. So the big thing to take away here is always maintain the student frame. All right? The next one is hinging self-esteem on what others think. Now, if you've got this particular filter in your head, your state, as it were, is very easily broken as soon as anyone launches an attack on you. Now, unfortunately, this betrays you as somebody with a weak frame who is not of high status, and it actually sinks your charisma. So always keep in mind that your success or your failure at this has really nothing to do with your inherent value as a person, any more than your ability to shoot a basketball does, okay? It's just a skill. Okay, next, this is a big one, fear to break rapport or being too nice. Like many students that I work with are plagued by this. They're afraid to be perceived as rude. And what they don't realize is in many situations, breaking rapport is in fact the correct course of action. But these folks, they're so paralyzed by the idea that they might be thought of as rude that they fail to act, and you just see the house of cards come tumbling down, right? So don't be a doormat. Stand up for yourself, make your voice heard, be counted, break rapport when it's necessary or appropriate. Okay. Number 10, the need to entertain. And this is also known as the dreaded curse of the dancing monkey, okay? And this is characterized by a feeling that, you've got to impress other people. Because if you don't, they might get bored, they might go away. And basically, this is just indicative of a lack of confidence. You don't feel intrinsically valuable, so you bust out all these jokes and gimmicks, the song and dance, in an attempt to, maintain the attention of the group. Yes, you might hold their attention for a while, but all you're really doing is providing them with their entertainment for the night. The second the dancing stops, their interest dissipates, like a castle made of sand. And when the closing time comes around, it's like, thank you very much, nighty-night, game over, thanks for playing. So lose this need to entertain. You want to drop that like a hot rock. Now, these filters of insecurity that I've listed here, this list is far from complete. These are just a sample of some of the more common ones that we see out in our coaching. It's by no means intended to be a comprehensive catalog. So take the time here and ask yourself, which of these could apply to me? And then after that, you start to just do your best to eliminate them from your life. And note here, this is a very important distinction. This isn't about, excuse me, this isn't about feeling guilt, this isn't about feeling shame, because that just adds to the judgmental burden that caused most of these issues in the first place. You know, charisma is usually something that's thought of as like mystical. You know, you're either born with it or you're not. But if we define it as energy flow, we can exercise those energies and we can increase the flow. So with Charisma Mastery, I've created an interactive course and furthermore an exercise process that's designed to release these filters of insecurity and actually grant you this seemingly superhuman charisma in an 8-week period. So what this does is it puts you directly in charge of your own development. And furthermore, it gives you the means to continue to expand your communication power for as long as you want. Now bear in mind, this exercise process can actually be done at home. You know, you don't have to go out and actually expose yourself to ridicule yet. But there's a big difference between exercise and performance, okay, understand that. But in order to apply it to real life, all you gotta do is go out. And it's so important to learn this stuff because, you know, people don't know anything about you, they know nothing about your history, they know nothing about your style until you bring it to them. So you gotta be able to relate. You know, you might have this incredible, rich inner life and be the nicest person, but unless you're able to communicate that, nobody's gonna know, right? And then what happens? You get ignored by people you wanna date. You get passed up for promotion at work while like the superficial ass kisser at the office gets the big bonus every quarter, right? You get ripped off in business. Competitors sense you're weak. You get taken advantage of by other people because you're spending all your time taking care of everybody else's problems, taking care of everybody else's requests because you're such a nice guy, even when they would probably never do the same for you. Maybe you're preyed upon by scammers, you know, because they can kind of sense that you have this desperate need to be liked and they take advantage of that. So when you change this and when you get that charisma, your entire life switches around almost overnight. It's like boom, money, dates, opportunity, access, influence, friendship, love, they all come flooding in from out of nowhere, right? It's like a complete 180-degree shift. So you're not a victim of your history. You can start practicing new patterns of your own choice. You can take charge of the development of your interpersonal expressive power, right? This is very, very, very possible. I've seen it time and time again every weekend over this, you know, the course of the past 17 years. And instead of feeling tense when meeting people, you can feel free, you can feel relaxed, you can feel responsive to the immediate needs of the situation. So this program, it allows you to communicate more clearly, more completely, more consciously. It allows you to feel better about communicating and interacting with people. It allows you to have more fun while you're doing it, and it heightens your sense of personal power, heightens your sense of freedom in social interactions. So focus on the opportunity. The opportunity is there. And like I said, the first step is opening your mind to the possibility. And if you're watching this, your mind probably is already open to a degree. The door's cracked, you understand that it's real, and it is very possible, and I can help you. And these methods that I'm talking about in these videos, these are merely guidelines, you know, and that's why it's important to have a coach. Being held accountable, getting personal instruction from myself, somebody who's been teaching this live for 17 years, that's something that's gonna trim years off of your learning curve. So, if you're feeling a strong inner pull right now that says, yes, do this, then trust your instincts and take all these tools and resources that I've spent years developing with my colleagues, right? Take it so you can instantly profit from our almost 2 decades of blood, sweat, and tears, okay? Hard-won experience. You can only come out ahead, right? There's literally nothing to lose. Money back guarantee, as always, you got nothing to lose. So to get started, click the link in the description below here and take charge of your life today. This has been Jeffy from Baker Beach. I'll see you next time. Peace. This program is designed to give you a process to open and sustain charismatic expression with increasing consistency. Remove the obstacles, isolate the skills, exercise them separately, then put them together in a more completely realized whole. How to speak to all the issues surrounding this interrelationship between intuitive and intellectual resources is arguably the most fundamental challenge facing anyone who's attempting to improve their communication skills.
So if you're looking to develop general charisma that you can apply across all areas of life, definitely check out Jeff's Charisma Mastery.